It's 1911. Marion Benson Owens marries Robert Dixon Pike, and they plan to live in New York. But business takes Robert to L.A. Little was Marion back then to know that in this city she would make her name as a legendary scenario writer. Before meeting Robert, Marion worked as assistant to the acclaimed photographer Arnold Gentry. He noticed her good looks and she became a model. But she preferred to work on the other side of the camera. As she had developed some painting skills earlier in life, she also took assignments as a commercial artist and painted landscapes which were used as posters and dining car menu covers for the Western Pacific Railroad Company. But having also writing ambitions, Marion became a reporter for the San Francisco Examiner. The San Francisco Examiner was a part of William Randolph Hearst's newspaper empire. In her capacity as a reporter for the Examiner, she met actress Marion Dressler. They would become lifelong friends, although it would take a while for them to meet again after the interview she did with Marion. So in 1911, Marion married businessman Robert Dixon Pike and moved to LA. As they had plans to live in New York City, they decided to stay in LA for only 2 years. But things didn't go as planned, which turned out to be a good thing for Marion. LA in 1912 was a sprawling flatland stretching between the ocean and the mountains. This is where Marion would meet Mary Dressler for a second time, and that was in 1914. Noticing her good looks, Mary thought it was a good idea for Marion to get started in films as an actress. So she was introduced to film director Louis Weber. As Marion was more interested in working on the dark side of the camera, she told Weber she was interested in designing costumes and sets. But Louis saw her more as an actress, so she told Marion that on her pictures everybody did a little bit of everything. So under the wings of Louis Weber, Marion learned all kinds of things about filmmaking. She became Weber's assistant and protege, and she would work in every stage of production, including in front of the camera. A few months short of her 26th birthday, Marion Benson Owens DeLappe Pike signed her contract with Bosworth Incorporated as Frances Marion, actress, refined type, age 19. After a long and successful career in the film industry, Frances Marion published her autobiography, Off with Their Heads, in the summer of 1972. The manuscript, which was titled Hollywood before getting its definite title, was over 600 pages. She interlaced her own activities with tales of those she had known and worked with. The manuscript is one of the sources biographer Cari Beauchamp used for the biography of Frances Marion without lying down, Frances Marion and the powerful women of early Hollywood. When both literary agents at Schulberg and Marion's editor, Roy Roberts, told her she would have to cut the manuscript at least 100 pages, Frances assumed readers would be more interested in the people she knew, and she removed many of the vignettes about her own life and almost every mention of all of her husbands but Fred. Fred Thompson being the love of her life. She married in 1919 and they stayed married until his death in 1928. Fred was with Tom Mix, the most popular Western actor of his day. But Frances reduced the retelling of Fred's death to only a single paragraph. In the 1920s, the film industry had all grown up and it had become a serious business. Successful businessmen like Joe Kennedy, the later politician and ambassador, had an interest in the film business, film industry, which wasn't all good news for the people working in the film industry. Fred Thompson had an image as a problem solver and a man of action. He was used to obstacles and he could overcome it by tenacity and hard work. The Thompsons had been on good terms with Kennedy for a long time, and his interest in Fred's career had brought the Thompsons a lot of good things. But later in the 1920s, Kennedy's financial interests in the film industry turned out to be not good for Fred. It all started when Kennedy took Tom Mix, like I said, another popular Western star, under contract. Now he had two of the most popular Western stars under contract. One with his own studio and the other under personal contract. So Kennedy financed Fred's films up to $75,000 and then recouped the financing and collected another $100,000 for himself upon completion of each film. With other costs, each film cost Paramount $275,000, so they had to charge exhibitors much more than most were willing or able to pay. Kennedy could make cheaper films with Tom Mix, and his competition was negligible. Well, with Fred out of the way, you get what I mean. Kennedy had a lot of power. He did not only have FBO and Pathé, he also took over Keith Albee Orpheum and had control of the vaudeville circuit operation of 300 theaters. So no, 1928 was not a good year for Fred. And it would get worse. December 1928, Fred got seriously ill and was rushed to the hospital. He had contracted tetanus and in the end would die of it. 1928 was also the year sound was introduced with the jazz singer. Frances saw opportunities for sound film. The sound of campfire and horses galloping in westerns, for example. But not everybody saw sound as something that was going to stay for long. Some saw it as a novelty, and the costs of making a sound film were huge, not to think of the fact that almost none of the theaters had the right projectors that could handle sound films. But Frances was convinced that sound was the new way forward for the film industry. Fast forward to the 1940s. The war changed a lot for most people working in Hollywood. Frances kept working and returned to MGM in 1943 as editorial assistant to Louis B. Mayer. Her salary had been slashed to $750 a week. It was later raised to $1,100 a week, but it was a fraction of what she had earned at the height of her career. With men returning from the war, women were leaving the film business in much larger numbers than they were entering it. And Frances found that what had been a fulfilling way of life was fast becoming only a job. Even though Frances had signed over the rights to a dozen scripts she had completed for MGM since 1940, she did not receive an on-screen credit in all that time. Frances, Bess Meredith and Anita Loos, the most important scenario writers at MGM, were asked for advice on virtually every script MGM produced in the 1930s. And Frances felt her efforts were unappreciated. So she decided it was time to leave MGM. After over 30 years of writing movies and 20 years at MGM, Frances was notified on October the 23rd of 1946 that her contract was, and I quote, "by agreement terminated, and we are released of any and all claims, demands, and own all the results and proceeds of her service. This and much more you can read in Cari Beauchamp's biography of Frances Marion, Without Lying Down. The title referring to something Frances said, which was something like, "I've been looking all my life for a man to which I can look up to without lying down." There is a lot of information about the women Frances befriended over time, women who were important for the film industry, women like Mary Pickford, Mary Dressler, Marion Davis, Anita Loos, and much more. To conclude this video, I'd like to thank my Filmtastic February co-hosts, Roy of Roy Reads Anything, and Duncan from Back Away from the Donkey. I also like to thank everybody who participated in this fun reading event. Next week, I will be talking about 2 comics I read: Fatal Rendezvous, which is an adult comic by Milo Manara, and Howard the Duck, which is a satirical comic. Hope to see you then.